Hello chess friends, and welcome to the Chess channel, and welcome to the event that everyone has been waiting for. Welcome to the FIDE Candidates in 2022. So this is now brilliant chess event, and we'll see now 8 top grandmasters battling for the throne in a double round robin. So it means now we'll see 14 brilliant rounds. And the cool part I think about this tournament is that we'll see every day a beautiful derby. Every game I think is a derby. For instance, you can watch maybe Nepo against Caruana, it's a beautiful derby. You can watch, I don't know, Alireza Firouzja against Hikaru Nakamura, it's I think the derby of the derby. So as I said, every day we'll see beautiful games, and I'm really looking forward to watch every game, and of course also to cover many of these beautiful chess games, because they're really worth the study. And especially also in the day one we had already some wild games, which was really incredible. And we're starting now with the round one with the American derby between Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura. So this was quite a spectacular game, I think, because Hikaru I think wanted also to prove himself a little bit in this tournament. Hikaru has not played now recently many this candidate, so he was now maybe his chance to challenge the world champion Magnus Carlsen in their next world championship match. So let's see now what happens. So as I said, we're starting now the FIDE candidates with the round one, Fabiano Caruana with the white pieces and Hikaru Nakamura with the black pieces. So Fabi opened with the move e4. We have e5 by Hikaru, knight to f3, knight to c6, and I think in this tournament you see the classical openings. You not see wild openings. Everyone will play many real opens, Queen's Gambit declines, Italian games and similar stuff. So no one, I think, will risk anything with the wild opening. Maybe the later stage of the tournament when things are getting heated, and when maybe you want to get the whole point immediately, then you want to spice it up maybe with some wild ideas. But so far in the starting rounds, I think, of the super event, we'll see just solid openings. So after move knight to c6, we have bishop to b5. The Ruy Lopez, the Spanish game, is on the board. Knight to f6, we have the Berlin defense, d3, and after bishop to c5, now we have this exchange variation with bishop to c6, and after d takes c6, we have reached now position where, of course, white gave up the bishop pair, but has now at least provoked some structural weaknesses here. So black has now a positional problem, this double pawn structure, but it's a playable opening for both sides. So many games are won also by black in this position, but also many games are won by white. So pretty equal position. So here in the continuation, knight from b to d2, we have bishop to e6, bishop to g5 is maybe g4, pardon me, is maybe a much more aggressive move, but still you don't have to rush here. You can play h3, bishop to h5, then knight to f1, knight to g3. Still kicking, you can kick away the bishop, then the bishop has to retreat to g6, and I think you have a powerful control with both of this knight on the king side. So this pinning idea from white's perspective should, I think, not bother you. So after move knight from b to d2, as we said, bishop to e6, king side castling by Fabiano, we have bishop to d6, and now knight to b3. So this is now an idea maybe to, in the later stage of the game, to also provoke some weaknesses here around the square c5. We want to play bishop to e3 and then occupy this weakness. If you want to maybe prevent this jump on c5, you could maybe try the move b6, but even if you do that, then of course you're again weakening a little bit the pawn structure here on the queen side, because believe me or not, many times in these positions black is also castling queen side and then tries to launch a flank attack with h5, h4, g5, g4 here against white's castle king. So don't be surprised, for instance, in this position if black castles queen side. So here in the continuation, we have queen to e7. You see Hikaru plays now really flexible move, queen to e7, where he still has his options. He can castle queen side or he can castle king side. So that's why Fabi played here a very aggressive move, knight to a5, and he's saying, if you want to castle queen side, my knight is already there, I will attack you. So that's why here Hikaru played rook to b8, and obviously he's saying, I'm not going to castle queen side anymore. But actually here queen side castling is the suggested move by top engines, and this is, in my opinion, a much better continuation. Many games have been played in this position, and only black won games in this types of structures, in these types of positions. So as I said, maybe Hikaru missed some kind of an opening theory here, but maybe it was also his opening preparation at home, I'm not sure. But here he played rook to b8 and simply protected his pawn. So in the continuation, we have bishop to g5, h6, and after bishop to h4, now even a wilder move here by Hikaru, he played g5. And okay, here already Hikaru is saying, I'm not going to castle even kingside, because of course I have played already this rook, and now again castling kingside would be a suicide, because you have created really some weaknesses here. Look at this, there are many holes in the position, so it's a risky choice here by Hikaru, but we know Hikaru is an aggressive player. That's why we love, of course, his games, because he's trying always to spice up some things. So here the continuation, bishop to g3, knight to d7, and now here d4 immediately by Fabiano, which is of course a natural choice. Whenever you feel that your opponent is staying a little bit too long with the king in the center, you should provoke him. You should of course try to open the center and then try to attack the uncastled king. So even if black castles now on the king side, still it's risky, because as we said, you have already provoked here some weaknesses. So here in the continuation, f6 by Hikaru, although there is even a better line, but this is just a wild top engine line that I'm showing you. Actually h5 is really the best suggested move, with the immediate threat to play h4. And now look at this, white needs now to give up the bishop immediately, at least to trade it off for some other pieces. After knight to e5, knight to e5, bishop to e5, d takes e5. But look at this, now with queen to c5 we can play a double attack also the knight on a5 and also the pawn on e5. White needs now to retreat to b3 and we can take out the pawn, and I think black has equalized the game in an early stage of the game. This is not something that should bother here black in the continuation. Again, actually here the engine likes even slightly better black's position. So this was maybe a way to go, h5. As we said, maybe this was a beautiful way to simplify the game here for Hikaru Nakamura, but he fixed further the pawn structure with the move f6, and here Fabiano Caruana plays now the move queen to d3, simply connecting the rooks, and now he's trying to get both of these rooks, of course, on the open file and maybe semi-open file here, the e file. So now Hikaru plays h5, but it seemed to me that it's simply one move too slow. He had the opportunity to immediately play the move h5. Now here Fabiano took, we have d takes e5, knight to e5, bishop to e5, we have f takes e5, but now with knight to c4 here, Fabiano Caruana is of course getting the knight back, and he's threatening now knight takes d6. So we have here rook to d8, knight takes d6, and okay, here c takes d6, nothing special I think in this position. Hikaru Nakamura at least improved now in this sequence his pawn structure. He has now again a healthy pawn structure, and we have to say it's a dynamic pawn structure, because in the near future maybe black can also push the pawn on d5 and have really beautiful central control with his pawns. But still d5 is risky, because this knight is also powerful. So here in the continuation, after move c takes d6, we have queen to e3, played by Fabiano Caruana, attacking both of the pawns, and now g4, kicking away the knight, knight to d2, and of course now a6, simply getting out of the range of the queen. So now comes b3 with the preparation to play c4, and now comes, I think, one of the critical moments of this game. Hikaru Nakamura castled, and as we said, you have already exposed yourself a little bit too much. Look at the spaces here. There are so many spaces in front of the king, and that's exactly what you should not do. Even a better idea is maybe to just secure the king on this side by moving the king maybe here to d7 and afterwards maybe to c7, c8. Here you can also play immediately h4, just push this pawn further, and when you get endangered maybe by the queen somehow, then just to get out of the range, so escape with the king maybe even towards the queen side. Actually, king side in my opinion is a risky choice, because look at this, how much spaces now white can attack, how much spaces now Fabiano Caruana has in the continuation of the game. So here Fabi played f3 immediately. He's saying, I will open now the position because you have simply endangered king. And Magnus Carlsen also mentioned in his comments on Twitter, I think that he said something like Hikaru Nakamura doesn't care for his king security. So we know the quote that literally Hikaru Nakamura doesn't care. It's of course always fun to see Hikaru Nakamura saying such things, but this is not the way to go, I think, to have this king like this in danger. So it was now simply a one-way ticket. I think from this point on Fabiano Caruana is taking over. So we have queen to g7. You see, you have to use your queen in order to protect the king. This is not the way, of course, to play with the queen. Although the engine doesn't give here a decisive advantage for white, it's not that the white is winning the game immediately just because the king is naked. It's just, in my opinion, much easier for white to continue in this game because you have simply this endangered king. So here f takes g4, h takes g4, rook from a to d1. Look at this. Also the d6 is a little bit weak, so here Fabi is also trying here the attack. We have d5. Although again, I have to say, maybe here rook to f6 just to simplify the game, maybe trying to further trade off more pieces, because the problem I think in white's position is that white cannot jump here with the knight on c4. When that happens, black will immediately give up the bishop for a knight and double up the pawn structure. So actually the light for bishop is controlling the knight a little bit, so the knight is out of game. So I think here Hikaru had to realize his chances in the game. She should have said, okay, I made maybe a couple of inaccuracies, I should go for a draw, just simplify the game, trade off more pieces. But he played now a wild move d5, and when your king is endangered, opening the center is even wilder, because look at this, now even the center can be opened and the king side is opened anyway. So now it's a really a much better position, I think, here for Fabi. So we have e takes d5, c takes d5, we have rook to e1 attacking simply the weakness on e5, and now we have e4 here by Hikaru. Again, a necessary move, because here I think you have to play something like rook to f1. After rook to f1, we're deflecting now the rook from the e file, and now you can play b5, because you have to stay, I think, a little bit flexible with this pawn. You look at this, these pawns are protecting everything, and now the knight is simply out of game, and this was maybe a way to go. But after move e4, you're basically inviting your opponent to play the move c4, because look at this, we want to just to deflect this pawn from the defense of the e4 pawn. So that's why here first rook to f8, rook takes f8, and now after c4, the problem is now you cannot even take, because after d takes c4, queen takes e4 comes with a beautiful tempo, and now you lose also this pawn. So that's why after move c4, we have rook to e8. Here by Hikaru, we have c takes d5, bishop to d5, and now knight to f1. And here obviously the knight is much better. Look at this. Here Fabiano Caruana played a beautiful blockade. He's trying now just to get the queen somewhere maybe to g3, and then to play knight to e3. This would be a beautiful blockade, blocking out the pawn now. And there is also a very important thing here to say. In this particular position, if you could just imagine this position without the queens, without the bishops, without the knights, without the bishop on the board, without any piece on the board, with just the pawns on the board, then white is winning this endgame, because of the possibility to create a distant pass pawn. That's now the beautiful strategical goal here for white. If this game reaches a fully endgame, white is winning for sure, because of the opportunity. Then we just create an h pawn here, and then we march with our king towards the queen side, towards the center. Black will always be deflected, and will of course try to attack these two pawns, or it will try to attack the pass pawn that we create maybe on the h file. And then white is much better. White is marching just with the king freely, will take out eventually this pawn. Black has his fun here, but we take out this one, and then it's a completely winning endgame. So as I said, you should not forget about this, because going into an endgame can be also your idea in the middle game stage, or maybe in this later middle game stage, because now white needs just to even trade off more pieces, just even trade off everything, and white is winning the game. So that's also something that we should not forget. So we have queen to e5, queen to h6, queen to g7. You see now queen to d6. Still, Fabiano is not trying to simplify the game immediately. He's saying still your king is in danger, so still I don't have to rush into an endgame. So here bishop to c6, we have knight to e3, we have g3. Here Hikaru is trying to simplify the game, maybe by trading off the queens, but again h takes g3 here by Fabiano, so nothing special. Still, it's a much better continuation. Still, of course, we have this distant pass pawn. It's now maybe closer to the center of the board, but even if this position reaches the endgame stage, still black's king will be always deflected to the king side, and white's king can march here and pick up this pawn, and then eventually this pawn. So we have queen to e5, queen to g6, queen to g7, queen to d6, a couple of ideas to trade off the queens, but still Fabi is saying I don't need to. I will eventually maybe even trade off the queens, but so far I don't need to, because your king is so dead, so I don't have to rush in this game. So we have queen takes g3, we have rook to f1, we have queen to g7, queen to h4, and now we have queen to h7. Although a better idea here, and that's what I think now the crucial also mistake here by Hikaru, he played queen to h7. You have to play bishop to d7. You have to, I think, cover now your f5 square, because that was a beautiful square for the knight. And unfortunately here for for Fabiano Caruana, he did use that because he played here queen to g3. After queen to g7, now he had the opportunity again maybe to take and then also to play something like knight to f5, but here he tried again queen to h4. So basically Fabi didn't find immediately the winning sequence. He again tried to play some moves, and we have to say it was also a very important stage of the game where both of them were low on clock, and only after the move 40 they get an additional hour. So we're now in the move 41. Now when Fabi played a couple moves, maybe they weren't really the best moves, but now when he reached the move 41, he get an additional hour and he could now play freely. He has now again time on the clock, and this is now, as I said, a very important moment, because now now Fabiano Caruana had the opportunity to calculate the position better. So we have bishop to d7, rook to d1, we have bishop to e6, knight to d5. Here Fabiano is saying, okay, again, maybe if bishop to d5 happens, look at this, rook to d5. And the problem is now there is not a good way to protect this idea, rook to g5. You cannot escape from this. Even if you try rook to e5, then you get first rook to d8. Now you can cover, but look, rook to d7 and you lose the queen. So it's game over. This is not working. So that's why after move knight to d5, you see Hikaru cannot take. So it was a beautiful trap here by Fabiano Caruana. We have rook to f8, we have queen to e4. Finally here Caruana grabs also pawn and has now a completely winning endgame. So we have queen to h6, rook to e1, we have rook to d8, knight to e7, first the check, we have king to f7, knight to f5. Again, if you take here, bishop to f5, queen to e7 can be played, and then you can also take out the rook here on d8. It's again completely winning here for Fabiano. So after move knight to f5, we have queen to f6, and now after move rook to f1, we are threatening here some discoveries. So that's why we have bishop to d5 here by Hikaru Nakamura. He tried here now counterattack, but now comes the stunner knight to h6, and here in this position, pardon me, here a couple more moves have been played here. Hikaru tried king to g7 after queen to g4. In this position, actually, Hikaru Nakamura resigned. So what's the point? Of course, you have to cover yourself with queen to g6, but whatever you do, for instance, we can try knight to f5 again, and the problem is now you have to use one of the squares. If you play king to h7, then you get queen to h4 and you lose the rook. If you play here king to f7, then you get simply knight to h4, a discovered check, and also a discovered attack against the queen. So the queen will be trapped, and actually it's even a forced checkmate. It doesn't matter, but of course it's here decisive material for sure for white. So really stunning game. I think this was a little bit careless by Hikaru Nakamura to play the game like this, pushing the pawns in front of the king. And as we said, if you push the pawns, then don't castle into the space that you have left your opponent. So it was, I think, a little bit careless, as I said, and Fabiano Caruana took his chances, played a calm game eventually. Maybe his accuracy wasn't so good, but as we said, he really wanted to get this point where he would reach the move 40, where he could get, of course, some additional time. And it was now very important win, but also very important moment of this tournament already, because a point in this tournament is crucial, because probably we'll see many draws, and who will win more games will eventually win the super event. So as I said, congratulations to Fabiano Caruana. As I said in the beginning of this tournament, in my opinion, Fabiano Caruana is my favorite in this event. I've written it before the tournament, so now he proved, I think, his point here. He has now really good chances maybe to win the whole thing, so we'll see. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. Really interesting stuff already in the round one. We'll cover, of course, more games from this tournament, and please check them out. Also, so far I think we have a beautiful start, because no draws have been played immediately, so not so many draws, which is of course very important for this event. So okay, see you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.